Welcome to Brightly, You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we share soul-driven advice and topics to help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and passions, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself, inch by inch.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Tracy. I keep wondering, when am I going to just memorize that?
Oh, me too. Somebody asked me the other day what my podcast was about, and I was like, things.
Soul-driven advice, Tracy.
That comes immediately after I walk away from them, right? Then I remember the thing by heart. Then it's ingrained. If you're new to the podcast, hi. This is our 80th episode. We got it locked down.
Oh my gosh, it is our 80th. Hey, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, Amy, I do have to say, so we try and record two at a time. And so we're a couple weeks ahead just in case. You're looking positively transformed, my dear.
Oh, right.
Can I take credit for it? Was it one of our conversations?
Well, actually it was. I don't think that I look transformed, but I shouldn't say feel transformed, but here's the thing that happened. So the other thing that we do, we a lot of times will record 2 episodes, each time. And so we get ahead of ourselves. We're not ahead of ourselves right now. However, I've had some time since this epic episode that I was like, why are you making me cry? And question myself. So we had already planned to do this one on transformation as well. And I'm thinking, like, leading up to transformation, I'm like, oh, it's going to be great. I will have gone through this huge transformation and will have walked out the other side a new and brilliant Amy.
Because it's always, transformation is never painful. There's never loss. There's no self-reflection. You wake up in your new universe and everything's working in your favor.
And it just happens. Ready for it. Poof. It's just like that. It's
blink of an eye.
Well, then we did the episode perspective, and listen, if you haven't listened to it, I highly suggest it. And also it sucks, just so you know. But I needed it to suck because it felt like this was the thing that had been sticking. And I didn't even realize it had been sticking. And so it was this perception. In the episode, I said that I was looking at myself through the lens of disappointment. And that I realized my disappointment was because my parents had these huge dreams and goals for me in a beautiful way, not like you will be a doctor or anything like that. Just like, we think you're great and we see big things for you. And now I'm like, well, there's I'm just looking at myself and I'm disappointed. So what I realized was, because this show made me do a lot of self-reflection, I realized that the first thing I had to do in order to begin any kind of transformation was to step back. And what I love too is that you were like, you don't need to know why or that. And I think I kind of got to that anyways. And now I could just like take those glasses off, right? Take those disappointment shades off and look at myself like, okay, this is you. And you've been through a lot and you've accomplished a lot and you have a good life for the most part. And that, I think, is probably something that many people would aspire to. So I took that lens off and then I re-listened to the next episode. The funeral for your past. And I realized Also, before I could have a funeral for my past, I had to do the tiny deaths, the tiny funerals. And because I love fire, built a literal fire and had some little funerals for some things that have been hanging around too long.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it kind of felt really good and it kind of sucked. And I feel tired and uh not completely transformed or anything huge or anything like that, but it also feels like I'm creating space inside and outside for more transformations.
Well, so when I said you look transformed, I don't necessarily mean appearance. I guess like it shows
Okay.
up as appearance or as you, but it makes so much sense if you also, in addition to changing your perspective, then took that and experienced the tiny deaths, and then had the release that funerals and ceremonies kind of
Mhm.
grant us. Maybe it's just you seem lighter.
You know what, Tracy? That's exactly, I was walking in my backyard and that is the thought that came to me was, oh, this feels light. I don't have the weight of this on my shoulders anymore. The weight of someone else's expectation of me, right? Of my own made up expectations of me, of perceived failures, right? And there's more work to do because that's the other cool thing with transformation. It's not one and done. It isn't this, you know, I think it was last week you referenced a phoenix. And
Mm.
of course the phoenix, you know, dies and then rises. It literally like self-combusts. It dies, it bursts into flames, and then the new phoenix rises from that. And believe me, that can happen with people. There can be major things that happen. You could get a new job overseas, you could move into a new house, you could have a new relationship, you could, you know, have something serious happen and then be transformed that way. So that can happen. But this feels, and it doesn't even feel like the butterfly either, because it's not like I'm in this cocoon of goo. It's just like, it's like, that doesn't feel very good. Okay, that feels a little better. Oh, that doesn't feel very good. Okay, that feels a little better. So I'm not sure. It's almost like I would rather have one extreme implosion, but it's okay. And it feels, yeah, it just feels like I could continue with this. How about you? Like, how are
Well,
you
no, we're
feeling?
still on you.
Oh, dang it.
So one of the things that I loved about, how you're reflecting on the perspective episode was not only did you identify the lens or the perspective that needed to come off, that you needed to change, but after you took that off, you took a step back and you widened your perspective with this new lens you were trying to craft, and you recognized, so here you're going, what we like to call negative emotions, right? So you're having this powerful experience of crying and weight and release and all this stuff. And then you took a step back and you realized, oh, it's not that bad. Like I have a pretty good life. And like, I feel like that kind of shapes your perspective for moving forward. And like you said, to make space for the new, when you're able to recognize, sometimes those really big, huge, dramatic changes take away things we liked too, right? Sometimes it's not just the stuff we needed to grow from that you lose. There's collateral damage sometimes when you have those major moments. And I think sometimes the smaller, more internal, not always seen outwardly transformations actually have the bigger impact on your life.
Oh, yeah, because I feel like those can be rooted in. Yeah, that makes sense.
More to think about. Okay, so me. You want to? For me, I'm still trying to figure out I've identified that I need to stop trying to figure out what the new is. I need to stop.
Virgo.
I need to stop intellectualizing the how and just focus on the why. So what I want and why I want it, what I don't want and why I don't want it, and then allowing the how to kind of shape itself from that. Because had I known all of the possibilities or a different direction to take in the first place, I would have taken it by now, right? And so by trying to lean so much on what I know and what's in front of me, I feel like I'm closing myself off to certain transformation or certain opportunities. Similar to you for perspective, I've taken a step back this year and I keep telling myself whenever things get really heavy or I get too analytical or too judgmental, this should be fun.
You know what? That's an important thing to remind yourself all the time. And if you can't just be like, this should be fun, then I would say, ask, what if this was fun?
Yeah. Why I should be enjoying this. This self-reflection is not a punishment. And I think sometimes when we reflect, we do start to judge and punish or overcorrect, or this is shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Yeah.
Who you should be.
Gosh, yeah.
And instead, so I'm just trying to focus on like when I'm feeling the anxiety, instead of intellectualizing it and trying to come up with a plan to fix it, or just feeling it and just this is my life, because overall it's pretty good. There's some stuff that absolutely could be better, but we will figure out the how. And it's not that I'm ignoring a problem, right? That's not what for the how is not your responsibility. That's not what that's about, right? So if there are things in your life that need your adult attention, you got to give it to it, right? Sometimes you do have to.
You got to figure out how to write a check to pay the bill. Sometimes you have to do that.
But the stuff I'm, kind of trying to figure out or was freaking out about, or just like where I want to go in life, future goals, all that is, I didn't set anything on fire yet, but it was kind of more of a release. Like, you know what? Like this should be fun, where it's not going to be a chore anymore. It's not going to, if it's not coming, it's not meant to come.
Yeah, I like that. How are you feeling with that? If it's not coming, it's not meant to come, because that sort of ties in, not spoiler alert, next episode is on patience.
Well, I was just going to say also, this really ties in. It's funny how transformation and patience kind of go together, because
I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
But the minute I started doing the show notes for patience, I was like, oh.
Well, because I think transformation, we think of like the movie Montage, like before, kind of like a huge major physical representation in your life that you're transformed. And here, like you could have gone through that Phoenix moment, and nobody thinks anything's changed in your life, right? And suddenly everything's different to you because it changed your whole perspective. Or
that's a really important point, that sometimes, especially with those huge internal changes and viewpoint changes, that other people look at you the same and treat you the same, even though you are not the same. And in that circumstance, I would say it's your responsibility to let people know if, in fact, it's no longer that's how you're treated, or that's, that you are indeed a different person.
So you said you were making space for transformation.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
So I feel like you can also plan your transformation. You don't have to just like release stuff and then be like me and be like, universe, show me how.
So, I mean, there's little things, like I said, I did get rid of some things that have just been hanging around, and that created space, but it was also part of the transformation. I had created this Instagram account because, funnily enough, it would have tied into transformation as well. And then it became a slog. And I realized that it would just be easier to have that, just get rid of that and just have it be a part of my regular Instagram page. Side note, it's very hard to delete an Instagram account. no matter if you read the instructions or not, because apparently, even though it's your account and you're in it, you have to plug in your password, and they tell you it's the wrong password. And then they give you another way to redo your password. And then it's just this loop of back to that. So I've just abandoned.
You had to fight for your transformation.
No, I abandoned that. So
No.
I didn't make the space. I just was like, all right, I'm leaving this room and never walking back into it again. But let me tell you, again, a weight was lifted. So now I feel like it is an opportunity. I've made a little bit of space, and I'll make more space. I feel like, and I know we've had this conversation with funerals, but now it's like, I feel like I can decide what I want the changes to be.
That's exciting.
And it's very exciting. A funny thing with me, though, and you can relate to this, is I have a lot of 7 of Cups energy. So by that, I mean, I like a lot of different things. But I was told recently I didn't have to choose. So I feel that if I get this other stuff that was not in the bucket of what I was really important to me, this being one of those things, that then I can expand the things that do feel important. And by expanding them, it transforms them.
Ooh.
I don't know. I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. And I know hope is not a strategy, but that's what I'm hoping.
Hey, we have a strategic plan. It's called doing things. Herb Keller said that very beautifully. I have it on my office wall. I mean, that's the thing with transformation. I think it takes action to a degree, which I know sounds hypocritical given the fact I just said, ignore the how. You don't have to know the how.
But even with the how, even if you ignore the how, there still is little actions that you can take, because you do get the hows. They come to you. So it's not like the universe takes care. The universe does take care of the hows, but the universe gives you the clues as to the how. The universe doesn't actually clean your bedroom and your closet and get rid of the clothes you no longer want.
So it sounds like, there's 2 kinds of transformation we've talked about on the show. The one, the caterpillar who prepares and turns in, creates a cocoon and turns into goo, which is a painful process, right? Mm-hmm. And then goes through a lot of internal transformation and emerges completely new and just kind of internally knows, the butterflies just kind of know when to migrate and where to go, even though that little caterpillar was born in Minnesota, right? Like, yeah. So that one's kind of more slower, right? It's slower, more intentional, and possibly pretty painful in the process. And then you have the phoenix, where you just kind of burst into flames and emerge anew, right? Like you're in it, trial by fire. This transformation is happening. Do you prefer one over the other? Have you ever?
I feel like I have had oh boy, I feel like I've had both of those at certain points in my life. To a degree, of course, not to the extent of actually, I think that no matter what, as human beings, there is a process, and even bursting into flames and coming out anew still takes time as well. But there is a different energy around that. I feel like for the people around you, I'm not sure which one is easy, because the cocoon is almost like the caterpillar. That's almost like hidden. It's a hidden thing, but then it turns out, yes, and then it turns up and it's something completely different. And the phoenix is almost like a violent, scary type of thing, and that could be very scary for the people around you. So I feel like I have done both those things. And maybe more the Phoenix. So I would rather like to try the caterpillar approach this time.
I mean, an interesting thing about the Phoenix one, or even the caterpillar one with preparation, there's a lot of people that I've talked to who in their lives have just been going through a hard time and are like, I just need new skies. And they want to quit and move or take a vacation, get a new job, physically move locations, drop all their friends, get all new friends. And I haven't understood that, not because I couldn't do it. Like that actually kind of sounds fun to me in a sense, because I love new and I love change. But I'm kind of the Debbie Downer of the group that looks at them like, but you'll still be you. Okay, right? If you don't do the inner work, I don't think that like physical transformation, creating and making physical transformation around you is not the transformation we're talking about.
This, though, I'm going to tell you why people want to do that. They want to do that because they feel that will push them into the internal transformation. I literally, folks, wrote a book about this. Not the one that I just finished. This was a different one that's not quite finished. And the title is called Gone Blonde. And the whole point of the book is this woman who is just fed up with how she's living her life, and she wants to take a vacation from herself.
I mean, someone who personally went blonde earlier this year and has only done it one other time in her life, I most definitely was like, I mean, I change my hair all the time, but like going blonde was a specific, I want more fun in my life. Let's see what happens. And guess what? I'm still me.
But this woman not only went blonde, she also left and went on a vacation and changed her name during the vacation.
Wow, that's intense. Yeah. Tricks.
Yeah. So that, but the interesting thing about the book was she actually got back to herself. She didn't change. She actually removed the layers that had been put on her.
Yeah. And see, some things, if you know you want to transform and you know who you want to be or what you want different, and you've identified that, then make all those other physical changes that represent it. Cause that sounds great. It sounds like you're working towards, and you know what transformation, you know, the perspective you need. You're doing both in tandem, right?
Yeah.
But don't just feel like I'm going to sell my house and live in a van. Yeah. And that's going to fix me.
Right. Don't do it if that's going to fix you. Do it if that's something you really want to do. But my plan, loosely laid, is to transform internally, still just continue to do that, make space externally around me and like in the house and different areas.
I mean, have you prepped your spouse, your partner? Have you shared with them you're transforming? Like, I feel like that's key of the close relationships around you, that they also make space. No. Are you more the like, I don't tell people my goal until I've accomplished it kind of a person? With the exception of this podcast.
Yeah. Sometimes, but sometimes I'm not. But in this case, I don't want anyone to give me 17 reasons why that won't work. I don't need that. And we have a great relationship.
Yeah.
But honestly, there are times that he's like, oh yeah, I tried that. And here's what happened. And then 45 minutes later, I'm like, oh yeah. So I'd rather just do it. And even if it's something that's not noticeable to other people, if it's noticeable to me and I feel different, that's the main thing.
Well, and I think that's the key thing about relationships in your life then, is it sounds like you seem pretty secure in knowing that you and your partner, maybe a value of your relationship is allowing space for room and growth and change and transformation. And so that's the type of like heads up I'm thinking of more too, is like, if you haven't already had that conversation with partners or friends, right? Like if people like to stick you in a box, that's part of the reflection that's needed. If you're feeling a transformation is coming, or if you just went through one, is do the people in your life value growth and change? And will they grow with you?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Because I guess for me, I thought, oh, this will be okay, only because the last 2 years, we've both been transforming and growing and adding and deleting and doing all kinds of things, not completely together, but both of us on like a similar path. And so that's why I'm like, it'll be okay. It's all right that I don't say anything. One thing that I wanted to bring up that I just wanted to touch on was while I was creating space, I found a treasure. And, not a literal, like that would be cool if I found a literal treasure. To me, it seemed like a literal treasure. It was an article that I had taken out of a magazine 2 years. Well, no, it was January, February of 21. So a year and a half ago. And because I thought, oh, that looks interesting. And then I think what happened was I just was like, oh, that looks interesting, and didn't do anything with it. So it's actually the title.
Saving it for today.
Yeah. So I found it and I was like, what? And I literally found this today. Okay. So the title of the article is Waiting in the Wings, The Real You. How great is that? But the whole article is about Haley Thomas, who at a very young age became sort of an advocate and activist about food, and ended up turning her whole family vegan at a very young age. She did a TED Talk at a very young age. She did school programs. She's like barely in her 20s, and she's doing these things. She wrote a book, Living Lively, and it's got plant-based recipes and like these, what did she call them? I actually have it pulled up here. She calls them like your power, your personal power, so it's wellness, thoughts and mindset, relationship. Those are things that a lot of people talk about. But what I love is that she talks about taking an inner interview. And I think that if we did that more often, if we interviewed ourselves and not just journal, I love to journal, but actually interviewed ourselves. Now I have a specific notebook where I talk to myself and then answer myself. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like that's cool. But one of the greatest things in here, I loved this. So this has like 5 questions. What emotion am I experiencing right now? How can I honor those emotions instead of resisting? How can I become my own safe space? Wow. So while you're transforming, I thought to myself, you do need to be your own safe space, because you're going to be questioning yourself and having missteps and feeling imbalanced, and you have to be able to go to someone. And so how can you create that in yourself?
So we talk a lot, kind of the business of being you,
yeah,
and all these different things. And this reminds me, our company recently started doing, and I was like the pilot person to experience it in my department, but we do stay interviews now.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So a lot of companies, when you quit, when you leave, they'll do an exit interview to find out why you left, in the hopes that maybe the feedback will be received and they'll make changes and they won't lose someone like you. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, very smart people somewhere along the line was like, why do we wait until they quit to ask them why they're leaving? Why aren't we asking people, why do you stay and what would make you want to leave? Right.
Yeah.
And so I feel like maybe for the business of you, in addition to all these other assessments we're doing, maybe we need to do stay interviews to see if we're ready for transformation.
Yes,
if we're about to burst into flames and just quit our lives that we've been building, right? Like, I went through that about a decade ago where I realized, well, the world, the universe, life made me realize I'm doing things I don't want to do. And none of them were bad, right? Like it was all really positive and all that. But the more I tried to just stick with it because I'd been working towards it, the harder life got. And it should have been getting easier the longer you do it. Right. And so I feel like kind of periodic stay interviews with yourself can prepare you for transformation, whether it's abrupt or planned.
I love that because I think that within the stay interview, and everyone could develop their own questions, but I feel like there could be questions that are like, am I comfortable with where I am in my life right now? Like, am I comfortable with the friends that I have right now?
If
Am
your
I
life were to change
happy?
tomorrow, what would you miss?
What would you miss? Yes. I love that idea,
And I feel
Tracy.
like a lot of, when we're looking at transformation and things like that, and how I kind of talked about sometimes there's loss. I feel like
Mhm.
occasionally too, if we're not willing to transform and grow or notice that we haven't transformed in a while, you lose things by staying stagnant too. And so it's kind of a nice
Yeah.
check-in with yourself. Am I moving at the pace of the people around me that I care about?
Mhm.
Is there a long distance between me and other people that I might not get the opportunity to catch up?
Am I okay with that? Could there be a different direction? I mean, I just think that there's so many options with a stay interview, and it could go off. And, it doesn't have to follow any rules. That's the great thing. It's your stay interview. You can ask the questions you want. You can go off on tangents.
Yeah,
You can
there's
do
no
all
witness.
kinds of things. You don't have to show it to anyone. You can burn it when you're done. Because
I'd love to get
I
feedback
would.
on the interviewer, Amy. She's just too intense. She asks really personal questions and she expects me to know the answers to them. How dare she? Oh.
I love that idea. I hope everyone tries that. I think that that's an excellent place to end. Just give yourself a stay interview and see where you're at with where you're at. Okay.
Oh.
There you go.
Well, if that also speaks to your soul, please share this podcast with a friend. And if you have time, give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we hope you have a bright and beautiful butterfly or phoenix day.